You called that a hoax. Have you retracted that statement?
See, you don't know what I actually said, because I didn't say what you're describing.
You did. I just watched it last night.
Every single time, the main purpose of the conversation is, what are the clippable moments where we can make our opponent say something he doesn't actually mean? All right, we got to watch this. Oh, hell.
Clarify that, please.
Jesse, I just want to make something clear. I don't care what kind of person you are. I don't care what your belief system is. None of that is relevant. The reason why I think you are toxic and at best extremely unhelpful in this area is that you distort the importance of this issue and are so fervent
Cops are coming to get him.
pointing out this minutia.
He got owned already for too hard by Sam.
In the face of what is actually happening on the ground.
Hey, just because we have limited time, could we just keep this to stuff I've written that you have?
No.
No,
because it's not even that there's a specific thing that I take issue with, because that in some ways is exactly indicative of the same problem. It's like, I know that you feel that you are just writing stuff that you think is accurate, very technically accurate. When Matt said your lies were cited by Republican attorney generals, for whatever reason, when we did this email exchange and you put out a little clip of it, my issue with you, what you do, okay, is best summed up in this analogy. And again, this is an analogy that's extreme, but it makes the case, is that back in 2004, there was a writer who wanted to argue, and you remember what was happening in 2004, 2005 in Iraq. Maybe it was before your time, I'm not sure. Who wanted to argue that there is nuance in the context of the torture debate. And by, sort of showing that within the context of the torture debate, there were nuanced instances where the idea of saying that torture is bad is inaccurate because there were nuanced instances where that was okay. And I think the headline was in defense of torture. And it was published on...
Another Samuel wrote that, famously. Samuel Harris, of course. God, I love Sam Seder so much.
On the Huffington Post at a time where
That's completely grotesque.
Yes, I'm sure. I use this example because I knew you would think it was grotesque. But why is it grotesque? Because this writer claimed that, look,
Hey, I don't want to talk. I'm not trying to talk over you, but can you just give me something to latch onto? A problem you have with my work, not with the work of someone.
No, well, I'm explaining it to you. You don't want to engage in it. I will explain to you. The reason why it's
grotesque. Engage in it.
Okay. The reason why it's grotesque to me in that instance is because it's one thing to sort of create a thought experiment where you could argue there are instances where torture is a legitimate choice, but it is another to do it.
Torture is not a legit, but torture.
I'm not saying that you are. I'm not saying that you are, Jesse. In fact, no, Jesse. I am using torture as an example so that you will understand my problem with your writing. I know that you think torture is abhorrent. That's why I'm using this as an example. There is no doubt in my mind that you agree with me totally on this perspective of torture. But let me finish so I can explain to you
my actual work.
I'm going to
my work.
Okay.
Okay, you'll get to it, I guess.
I will. I promise.
Why don't people ever comprehend how analogies work? He's trying to drive home the point instead of arguing on the minutia of specific writings related to trans research that he's supposedly revealing. I know what he's going to say, and if you're not a dumbass, you should have figured it out as well if you're Jesse Singal. He's saying that at a time when actual torture is happening, creating hypothetical scenarios in which torture could be justifiable is gruesome. At a time when there is real trans panic and a metric ton of anti-trans legislation passing that is truly harming trans people, not just children, adults as well. Writing articles claiming that you are covering the trans issue from an objective scientific perspective when that is not the case is contributing to the harm that trans people are experiencing, especially when Republican attorneys general use your writings as a way to claim, look, liberals are on our side as well. This is a bipartisan issue.
In promoting that, in that instance, in a moment when torture is on the front pages of the news, regardless of whether there was merit to the philosophical argument about the value of torture, which I would agree, and I'm convinced that you would think is abhorrent, period. What that article does is it gives cover for people who were promoting torture in places outside of Huffington Post. The writer
Yes.
is basically positing that they have no impact
By the way, this is why I love
on
Sam.
this public debate.
Partially because like we are in agreement on a lot of issues, almost down to a T.
Because I believe that if you are writing in this manner and you are promoting ideas in this manner in public, then you must take responsibility not just for the specific content as the letters, but its impact and how it's heard and how it's used in a political struggle that is going on. And I suggest that when you say the Republicans, AGs, who cited my material in the Atlantic, did so and twisted it in a way that it meant something different than it did, that at the very least, you would realize that you are being used as a means to attack trans people and to attract
But
to
that's
attack.
why 4 days. But that's why 4 days after they put that brief out, I did a Substack post saying lying about my work.
I'm glad that you did a Substack post. In fact, that same torture guy has a whole page on his, at that time, I think it was Medium.
Yep. He also clarified his comments that he wrote on the Huffington Post.
As to why this is being misinterpreted. But do you know how many people saw the HuffPost thing versus saw that Medium thing? This is what we call in sales a funnel. I don't know why I say we, because I'm not in sales, but I read enough about it.
You're saying that a lot of people saw this fairly obscure brief over a technical aspect of Affordable Care Act enforcement. That's your argument, that was like a viral Huffington Post article?
Are you suggesting in any way, Jesse, that your work hasn't been cited over and over again by people saying, like, even the liberal Jesse Singal says that there's something problem here?
I think you're a little bit trying to talk over me because I'm making a very basic point here.
Chatters were confused. Jesse Singal is a massive anti-trans journalist who always does the just asking questions type of shit that cut anti-trans propaganda. And that propaganda is, of course, incredibly well received by a broader audience of transphobes who are either self-proclaimed liberals or psychotic Republicans, then literally use it as a justification to say, look, even liberals are on board with this kind of shit. They are also asking questions and they think it's scary. In an identical capacity to the role that Sam Harris played, which Sam Seder here is perfectly pointing to, in the liberal justifications for all of the psychotic things that we did when we were pursuing the war on terror.
Okay, go ahead. You have the floor.
Okay. I emailed you. I pointed out that this brief said...
No, you did not use the words brief. And this is what you do. This is my experience of you. You keep saying that people misunderstand me, and Sam said he was going to do this and this and that. And you're the one who creates the confusion. I don't know if you do it on purpose or if you do it because you're trying to obscure some agenda. I don't know. I don't care.
I think it's more that I sort of cleared this up 4 years ago, but none of you guys have read that post, and you keep referring to it. And that's why I'm just trying to get
I don't care about that post.
30 seconds. No, I know you don't care about it, but I'm just trying to get 30 seconds to explain what happened, which you can choose not to grant me that 30 seconds, but just...
I'm going to give you 30 seconds.
Okay. They cited my work to say that gender medicine doesn't help trans adults. My work described that gender medicine as life-saving, and it quoted multiple trans adults who found it life-saving. So you can't read my article.
How late in the piece, Jesse? Have you heard of the principle of journalism where essentially you're supposed to...
Emma.
No. How late into the piece?
Top of the piece.
How late into the piece, Jesse?
Jesse, I'm looking at this section that you sent me about, like, for sure, trans-affirming care, this paragraph. There's 3,500 words in front of it, the section that you clipped for me.
Yeah, so you would think that the more obvious point, just basic rules of journalism.
Well, wait a second,
I know you're a journalist.
I want to hear
No.
Was it 3,500 words in, or was it...
He's just doing a classic journalistic practice called burying the lead, guys. I don't understand. You usually bury the lead 3,500 words in your article, and then it's fine. And then everyone is supposed to understand not necessarily the point that you're trying to get across, but instead the point that that you can always use as a saving grace for yourself if you want to maintain the veneer that you are a liberal at the end of the day.
At the top of the piece.
Yeah, which part?
It was 3,500 3,500 words into a 12,000 word piece, so it was near the top.
It was in the top 25% of a 12,000 word piece. Okay.
Right. As opposed to, I mean, Jesse, have you not in your work
Outside of 25%.
emphasize certain specific cases that are outside of the trend of the overwhelming data that shows that gender affirming care for youth is effective and helps reduce suicidal ideation and is important, and that the sister myth essentially is a small edge case? Have you not focused on that a disproportionate amount versus the overwhelming other elements of data that I just described?
Well, he's going to fucking say that that's not the case, because he's going to say that it's not a myth and that he's a journalist and then his job is to show the hidden truth.
Oh, but what you just said isn't true. There isn't overwhelming evidence.
There is. I'm looking. Okay, have you read the Journal of Pediatrics and their clear results on this front, where they looked at children, youth,
you're talking
over
about a
5
Jack Turbin
years?
paper. I've written two long. No, so you're talking about Christina Olson's paper, not Jack Turbin's paper. I apologize. Christina Olson's paper took a group of kids who transitioned early, social transition.
Yep.
She found that 93% of them 5 years in were still in that socially transitioned role, but none of them were diagnosed with gender dysphoria. So you can't compare that to the question I'm interested in, which is whether these treatments help alleviate gender dysphoria, because we don't know if the kids in Olson's sample had gender dysphoria.
You're using outdated terminology to talk about children who are already socially transitioning and showing that that is effective and they're consistent after that 5-year period in their transition.
This is just an objective matter of fact. What you just said, this is
pedantic. Do you believe that it is. Do you believe that gender affirming care works and is overwhelmingly effective with children? Do you believe it?
I am with the 5 European countries who have looked into this question closely, and all of them are like, we don't know yet. We need more data. So no, it's not.
Okay.
Dude, you know what? I do prefer Republicans to this kind of shit. Actually, I do. Because at least Republicans are honest about their lack of interest in having like a conversation. They're just like, I don't care about your point. Like, trans people are devils, they're demons, they're perverts, they're morally degenerate. I hate this type of liberalism where like you constantly have to act like your interlocutor is interested in having a genuine conversation, and then 90% of the conversation revolves around how you've misunderstood them, how they are simply asking for, simply asking questions, simply curious about the issue at hand, simply covering objective facts from the side that is unheard and unrepresented. And when pushed in to a corner, immediately they go, well, I'm siding with the countries and also saying that I don't know what to do. Jordan Peterson very famously used to do this before he just dropped that fucking notion that he's like actually a centrist or a liberal. It's debate purgatory that really, really frustrates me here. I hate it. I hate it so much. Just say what you fucking mean, man. Say what you fucking mean. And it's always those people who refuse to say what they fucking mean because they think it's an advantageous position in this supposedly quote-unquote intellectual conversation where they're supposed to arrive at the truth, that turn around and desperately try to move your words that you use very clearly in a direction that they are not in. Every single time I have conversations with debate lords who do this professionally, okay? I'm not just talking about like media people who engage in debates or whatever. Every single time, the main purpose of the conversation is, what are the clippable moments where we can make our opponent say something he doesn't actually mean?
The 10-year-old who got an abortion, who was raped, you call that a hoax. Have you retracted that statement?
See, you don't know what I actually said, because I didn't say what you're describing.
You did. I just watched it last night.
Right. And so what I said was the fact that they politicized this to win a political point is the hoax, not that the child was abused.
How does that constitute a hoax, Tim?
The little girl would not have been able to get the services she needed because there's no way she could handle this pregnancy. It's sad that the life of the baby will be terminated, but probably would be considered to be not viable anyway. Now look, there's a middle ground here, and I think Daily Mail hits on it.
There's a middle ground in this conversation about a 10-year-old rape victim getting an abortion.
There's no guarantee she would have gotten the services, but hold on there a minute. Why didn't the left report the rape? Why didn't they go in Ohio to abortion services, Planned Parenthood? Why didn't they say, we want a medical exception for this and make it a pressing public policy policy issue that they would have won on. I think the issue is the reason it played out the way it did, the reason it was not reported, is that the left would have lost. I will say this. This one's not a clear-cut hoax in the sense that someone made up a fake story. It's a hoax in the manufacture of the story to a certain degree. It is possible. The little girl would have went to the hospital and they would have said, no, you're carrying this baby. We won't do it. And the government would have said no. But I really, really doubt it. You think anyone in politics in Ohio is going to accept a 10-year-old rape victim being forced to carry a baby? That is just so far beyond reproach. You can already see when the story was presumed to be false, David Yost says, well, you don't have to leave. We would take care of this.
The left has done all of this stuff exclusively so they could get this story out there to make Ohio look bad. Mission accomplished. We did it, folks. That's crazy, man. That's crazy.
Powerful smack in the face of what was happening with these bills, with these heartbeat bills. There's a reason why they didn't try, because the greater possibility was medical exemption. There's no rape kit. There were no criminal.
Dude, he's wait. No, he is saying it's a fucking hoax. He's saying that that this is not real. Like, this story never happened. He's saying there's no rape kit.
Charges? Not until now? Why didn't anyone, knowing this girl, report this?
Dude, I'm sorry. You said it was a fucking hoax.
And even if he doesn't trip up in that conversation, even if he uses very carefully the words to show you what he actually means, we can clip it out of context and then claim that it's something that he doesn't mean, and then repeating it over and over and over again. If you are just now noticing how people do this, it's because you haven't been in these circles. Do you ever stop talking? No, brother, I'm a Twitch streamer. This is what I do.